So welcome back to Live Stage 1. I'm Maggie Williams, Content Director at REBA, and I'm very pleased to be speaking today with Steve Watson, Head of Proposition at Cushon. We're going to talk about transforming your financial wellbeing strategy from pensions to workplace savings. And Steve, I'd like to start off by talking about financial resilience around. To set the scene for us, why should employers care about employees' financial resilience at any time, not just in the current environment?
Yeah, hi there, Maggie. So, Maggie, it's about performance at work and productivity. The link between mental health and productivity is, I'm sure we'll all appreciate, is very well established. For instance, last year, the World Health Organization suggested that mental health costs the global economy about $1 trillion a year in lost productivity through presenteeism, sick days, all connected to mental health. That's why health and wellbeing right now is most definitely top of the HR agenda. Supporting employees' mental health is not just about the individuals, although that's important and crucial, but it does have a direct impact on the bottom line. Now, what is less understood is the impact financial worries have on mental health and ultimately performance at work. But our research shows this link very clearly. Employees are worried about money, which definitely impacts their mental health, but ultimately it impacts on their performance at work. In our research, 2 out of 3 employees, so the majority, stated that money worries negatively affect their mental health, and 3 out of 5 employees say that money worries conversely affect their performance at work. So helping employees become more financially resilient reduces sick days, presenteeism, and ultimately it increases the bottom line.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Steve. And to drill down a little bit now, how has COVID-19 specifically affected the need for employers to support employees' financial resilience?
Okay, so the pandemic has definitely shone a spotlight on an issue that we already knew was there. So even before COVID-19, we knew that the UK wasn't a nation of savers. Stats from the Money Advice Service showed that 16 million plus people have less than £100 in accessible savings. Now, that's not even enough to cover even the smallest of unexpected bills, let alone the financial fallout from a massive event such as COVID-19. Now, thankfully, employers are realising that the workplace is, and our research is showing this, that the workplace is the best place to help employees become more financially resilient. In our research, nearly 85% of employers believe that they should be helping employees with this challenge. And that challenge is about helping employees build up accessible savings. And I think even better, over 93% of employers agreed, now this is in view of COVID-19, they agreed they should now set up some form of workplace savings scheme.
And what about employees themselves? How has their view changed?
So, first of all, just to clarify, we carried out our latest research in May, so right in the middle of lockdown. And we compared results to research that we had done the year before. And overall, I can definitely say that employees are now more concerned about money in general, but definitely about the importance of saving. And that's all related to COVID-19. Again, we've done the research in May, so that was the context people were responding to the survey. I like to think of COVID-19 as that rainy day that we were all warned about, but never thought would ever come around. Now, regardless of our personal circumstances, we've all been affected somehow financially by COVID. In a way, COVID has been a great leveler. Some of us have been furloughed, so we're worried about job security. But then you have non-furloughed employees who are now realising that they should be saving more. Pension members have seen their fund values reduce. Savers have seen interest rates fall to all-time lowest levels of all time. And the investment market has become more volatile than ever. So we've all been impacted or affected in some way or another. But for all of us, having as much as possible in accessible savings is now more important than ever. Out of the research, 77% of employees responding said that COVID-19 has made them realise just how important this is. Now, interestingly, there was hardly any difference in response between furloughed employees and non-furloughed employees. And I think that's because we're either living the reality of COVID-19 as a furloughed employee and wishing that we'd saved more, or we haven't been furloughed and we're lucky enough to have more disposable income, travelling expenses are reduced, etc. So we've got more disposable income and realising that this is a greater opportunity to save more. But look, regardless of our personal circumstances, employees are looking, and this came out of the research really strongly, employees are looking to the employer for support. Nearly 72% of employees would like to see their employer set up some form of workplace savings, and over 40% would like to be given the option to redirect some of their pension contributions into some form of workplace saving. Employees understand the importance of pensions, so it's not sort of suggesting that that's not the case, but they realise that they also need to build up accessible savings, which is key to financial resilience.
Great, thanks, Steve. And I guess even without furlough and coronavirus, we've got differences in employees' financial priorities across generations that go beyond the current crisis. So addressing all this, when you take COVID into account, when you take different generations into account, this all starts to feel a bit like doing a Rubik's Cube. So can you paint a picture for me of some of the key points that employers should be looking at when they're planning their ways to support employees?
Yeah. So, Maggie, I think the first point is to realise that one size does not fit all. Okay, very rarely does, but in this particular situation, definitely one size doesn't fit all. And this comes clearly again, this comes out clearly in our research. We don't have time today to go through every demographic that we covered within our research, but if we look specifically at millennials, the two main financial issues for them is building up accessible savings, number one, and getting on the housing ladder. Perhaps not surprisingly for this particular demographic, again, we're talking about millennials, retirement and pensions is last on the list. I say not surprisingly, as I think most employers would agree that it's really difficult to get younger employees to engage with pensions. Now, that's not to say that pensions aren't important for younger employees. It's just that they're not right now a priority. Younger employees are looking for their employers to help them become more financially resilient. And as I said, COVID-19 has definitely shone a spotlight on that. And they also need help from the employer to get on the housing ladder. And if they get this help, although it might feel a bit counterintuitive, if they get that help with those 2 points, they are more likely to engage pension. There needs to be a more holistic approach, which is my second point. I think it really is important that employers stop thinking just about pensions and more about a holistic approach to workplace savings, whereby workplace savings are introduced as, I suppose, an adjunct to pensions, which is a far more engaging proposition. Some employers even go a step further than this by allowing employees the option to redirect some of their pension contributions over and above the auto-enrolment minimums into a workplace savings ISA. In our research, over 70% of employers would now consider a pension redirect arrangement, and for me, it only makes sense.
Great, thanks, Steve. But I guess at the moment, for many businesses, they'll offer a pension scheme, but nothing much else. How can employers start to take steps to pivot from just offering a pension to offering a wider solution to workplace savings and financial resilience?
So I think firstly, Maggie, there needs to be a corporate mindset change. I mentioned earlier about the top two financial priorities for millennials specifically, and that being saving, getting together enough savings and getting on the housing ladder, and retirement being last. We asked employers what they thought. So the research that I'm talking about, the sample was 2,000 employees, but also we asked questions to employers as well. So we asked employers what they thought their employees' financial priorities were. And in contrast to employees, for employers, they thought retirement was somewhere near the top. So straight away, there's a gap between what employers think their employees need and what employees are saying they actually need. This gap needs to be closed, which is about employers not thinking that workplace savings is all about pensions. It's a mindset change. The next step is to introduce a workplace savings scheme, but importantly, not in isolation. It needs to, as I mentioned earlier, be seen as an adjunct to the pension scheme, preferably part and parcel of a much wider financial wellbeing programme. In other words, it needs to be given a much wider context. Initially, it can be set up as a voluntary arrangement, but if you want real engagement from everyone and see it as a real way to help employees become more financially resilient, pension redirect should be considered, as a way of helping employees fund for those events. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of companies who already do this, and it really is successful and engaging, more importantly, engaging model.
Sure. So where does all of this leave pensions? Is that just for the basics auto enrolment? Where do pensions now sit in the new mix of what we're talking about?
Okay. Just to make it clear, pensions are important, and that is not going to change. But what must change is the emphasis that employers put on them. I think for far too long, pensions have been the sole focus for workplace savings. But with the best will in the world, a healthy pension pot that can't be accessed before age 55 doesn't help someone in their 30s get on the housing ladder or even become more financially resilient. There needs to be a holistic approach that caters for all financial needs, not just retirement. Pensions will remain an important part of the employee benefit mix, no doubt, albeit I think the current tax relief system, I don't know whether you agree with me, but I think the current tax relief system might change. But I really do see that pension redirect will become, at some point in the future, the norm. If you think about how flexible benefits have grown over the past few years, on the basis that it's better and more engaging to allow employees to build a package that best meets their individual needs, as opposed to a static menu of benefits. It's really logical that the same happens in the workplace savings space. Employees should be given the choice of how they fund their short-term, medium-term, and even their long-term financial needs.
Well, certainly pensions tax relief, that sounds like an entirely different conversation for another day, I think, Steve. Very complicated, that one. Well, thank you so much today. That's been really great. Some fantastic insights there. And I'd now like to open it up to audience questions. Well, thank you very, very much indeed today, Steve. That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed our discussion today. So thank you also to all of our audience for responding to the poll question. So, Steve, I'll just read out the responses that we've had. So our question was, how engaged are your younger employees with pensions? And sadly, nobody said that the younger employees are very engaged with pensions. 28% said that the engagement levels are okay. 29% said they're not very engaged, and 43%, so the biggest proportion of audience said that engagement is low, but we're looking at ways to improve this. So is that what you expected to see, Steve? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so in view of what we've just been discussing, Maggie, I don't think that is a surprise at all. You know, everybody is battling to engage younger people with pensions. And again, as I said, I think that the biggest mistake is just to think about it as part of a communication strategy. I think it's more in terms of a product design strategy, i.e. a holistic approach to workplace savings. So yeah, so no surprises there.
Okay. That's great, thank you. And an interesting question we've got from Jake Atfield, which leads really nicely on from that. So we've talked about the effect of age on attitudes to pension savings. Did your research show any different attitudes to payroll savings, depending on the age of employees?
So across the board, there was very, very little difference in responses between any of the ages or between furloughed and non-furloughed employees. So I think, again, COVID-19 has been a great leveler. You know, we're all very focused on, you know, what savings, either because we're living that reality or we're saving more money on our monthly expenses and have got more to put into savings. But in some way, whether that's negative or positive, we're all thinking about saving, and that goes across the whole demographic.
Great, thanks. And another question from the audience here is whether you could explain, you talked a little bit about pensions redirect, whether you could just give us a little bit more detail about how pensions redirect works.
Yeah, okay. So pension redirect is, in the first instance, it's looking at workplace savings on a holistic basis. And it's saying, and it's recognizing that employees, so we've spoken a lot about younger employees, but it's not just about younger employees. Employees as a whole have varying financial needs, and it's not just about retirement planning. So that's from the basis that it's coming. Pension redirect is, okay, as a company, we contribute more and the employee contributes more together. We contribute more than the auto enrolment minimums. And so what we're going to do is allow employees to have the choice, and it's always a choice, allow them to have the choice to redirect those pension contributions over and above the auto enrolment minimums into workplace savings like workplace ISAs. And so at the same time, they're still building up that important retirement pot while still looking at funding and saving for other financial needs.
Sure. And can you see a point where that becomes more?
Definitely. For me, it only makes sense, Maggie. Pension saving used to be an issue, and so we saw the introduction of auto enrolment, which, by the way, has done a great job in getting people into pension schemes. But it's done nothing to help people build up accessible savings, which is arguably a much bigger issue. I mean, even before COVID-19, there were, as I mentioned in our discussion, there were 16 million plus people in the UK with less than £100 savings. The pandemic has shown why this needs to be addressed. There'll always be competing financial needs across the whole workforce, which is why I think it's only logical that employees be given the choice of what the makeup of their workplace savings looks like. It's what we do with flexible benefits, so why not workplace savings? As our research shows, more and more employers are definitely seeing this an option not only to help employees with all their financial needs, but they also recognise that it's a way to really engage younger employees, as per that earlier question, who are just not engaged with pensions.
Sure. Well, Steve, that's been brilliant. Thank you so much. Sadly, we're out of time for today, but really, really appreciate it and really enjoyed our chat today. So if you'd like to find out some more about Cushon, amongst other things, they've got a free competition going on today. So you can visit the live video room with any further questions you've got for Steve. As you can see, he's very personable and he likes to chat. So please do head on over to the exhibition booths and find out more and go and say hello to Steve in person. So next, we've got some live vendor presentations coming up, and these are another great opportunity to understand more about new products and great services. So please head on over back to my itinerary to find out what's next on your list for today, and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you.